How you doing, folks? You're watching the 52nd episode of Onward with Onrie. I'm your host, Onrie Kompan, and today I've decided to reflect on my experiences from the entire 2018 comic convention season in the hopes that it will inspire you in some fashion. I learned something new from every convention experience, but many times lessons repeat themselves, and that's important because this way I know that what I've learned is something valuable that can actually be put into practice. Even if some of my experiences may seem redundant, think of my reflections as life beating me over the head with a hammer so that I never forget and can advance my career. Let me be your guide, and feel free to cherry pick and apply these lessons to your upcoming convention experiences in the new year. This year, my convention season kicked off at Planet Comic-Con, and it was not off to a good start. After what seemed like an unbreakable streak of consecutive sellouts, I was unable to sell out at a convention for the first time in a long while, and as you can imagine, I was feeling pretty bummed out about it. On Saturday evening, I was really disappointed in my situation until my buddy, Ted Sikora, made me realize you can't win every battle you fight. Sometimes you have to take the loss because you can't do better than your best. Knowing this didn't change a thing for me when I returned to battle on Sunday, but I did my best and I left the show with zero regrets. The next show I did was Emerald City Comic-Con, and I was now determined to get out on the floor and make up for my loss at Planet Comic-Con. I'll admit that I was nervous, as I usually am going at any convention. Whether I perform well or not is never anything I can be certain of. But just because I can't always win, doesn't mean I'm ever going to stop trying. Fortunately, I was able to pull off a stunning victory, which I credit all to the mindset I had going in. Whether you win or lose, always go in with the intent to win. At AwesomeCon, I was faced with the problem that I didn't anticipate: time. By Saturday night, I realized that I was flying out on Sunday afternoon and didn't give myself enough time to work the show and make it back to the airport. My sales captain, Kevin Hines, and I had over 400 books to sell in a single day, and we managed to do it in record time. I learned a valuable lesson from this show. Even when the chips are down, don't give up hope. Sometimes you can pull off a miracle without even realizing it. C2E2 has never been a really big performing show for me, despite the fact that it's a hometown convention. But this year, things changed and it became a smashing success. How or why that happened is a result of a number of different variables, but the lesson here is to never sell yourself short. Don't expect that the results will always be the same whether you're doing a show you anticipate to be good or bad. For example, at my next show, Phoenix Comic Fest, attendance was down for the year, and I had brought more books with me this year than any year prior. So how was I able to sell out? Simple. My sole focus became about the customer and their experience. Mine did not matter. What mattered was that I was invested in building those connections with my customers, and because I did this, I was able to sell it again despite the odds set against me. If I didn't, at least I would have known I did my best. Not all the lessons I learned are on the convention floor. At Denver Comic-Con, I came across some trouble with the host of my Airbnb. There are always things that you can't anticipate going wrong, and how you handle these inconveniences is crucial. In this case, I got into an unwanted dispute due to a simple misunderstanding. My host was not prepared for me to send her 4 big boxes full of books, regardless of the fact that I asked if it was okay prior to booking with her in the first place. She understood it as though I would be there to receive the books, but they arrived a few days in advance. Regardless of who was right or wrong, there was a failure to communicate on both ends, and I realized that the only way to resolve the situation was to make amends, because defending my position would have resulted in me sleeping outside for 3 days and being uncertain whether my books would be there upon my arrival. My objective was to sell out at this show, so I resolved the argument by giving my host what she wanted: a simple apology and a tip for her added troubles. Comic-Con in Nebraska was a show I just simply had fun at. I had absolutely no overhead at this show because I was invited as a special guest, so I just made the experience fun. Don't forget to do that. People can tell when you're feeling down or out about stuff. Try to maintain a positive outlook no matter what. This, of course, is much easier said than done, but at least when you're working in comics, it's something you're passionate about. It's not like going into an office every day and sitting behind a cubicle. Remember, not everyone gets to live their dreams, and so if you get the opportunity to live yours, don't waste it. Have fun with it. San Diego Comic-Con took place a week after Comic-Con, and I was pretty burned out going into this show, but I had no choice but to give it my all. At some points during the show, my patience got tested, and when that happened, I had to remind myself who I was. There was no room for self-doubt. I was not going to let this show defeat me. When I felt my patience was worn, I stepped away, and when I returned, I was ready to sling comics again and eventually sold out. Remember who you are and be proud of what you've achieved. Many people say that they want to live their dream, but few are willing to go the extra mile to make it happen. Wizard World Chicago was one of the hardest shows I've ever done in my career. Attendance was so low this year that I didn't have anyone to pitch, literally. But since it was a hometown show, I was able to provide extra incentive by giving discounts on Sunday. I don't like doing this, but sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for your audience. That's the job. As a result, I was able to sell out and still make money. Maybe not as much as I would have wanted to, but at least I left the show with zero regret. DragonCon 2018 was by far the most incredible show I have ever attended in my career. It took place on the 8-year anniversary of the day I left my day job and decided to pursue a full-time career in comics and entertainment. As I finished this convention, I reflected on how far I've come and couldn't help but have pride. It's important to look back on your achievements when you reach new milestones, no matter how big or small they may be. Doing so gives you the confidence to move forward. I bit off more than I could chew at Baltimore Comic-Con. Not only did I launch a Kickstarter on the same day of the show, but then I forgot to bring all my new promotional content on the first day. When I realized that this happened, there was nothing I could do about it. I just rolled with the punches, and because I had Kevin by my side, I was able to pull through. Ultimately, we didn't end up selling out this year, but we had a plan. We took all the books that we didn't sell at Baltimore and included them into the haul we brought with us to New York Comic Con the following week. This strategy was not likely to pay off, but Kevin and I were determined to get the job done. This year at New York Comic Con, we took on the 1500 comic book battle for the 3rd year in a row. This was a challenge that I created where I pushed myself to the limits to sell the highest concentrated amount of comics and graphic novels at a single convention. 1500 was the highest I thought we would ever get, but this year Kevin and I sold over 1600 books throughout the course of the convention, with 4 hours to spare in the end. Perhaps it's time to push ourselves even harder next year. The lesson here was to improvise. Working in comics doesn't just mean you are creative when writing or drawing. Many times, you have to be creative with your business hat on too. Alamo City Comic-Con was my final show of the year, and I wanted it to count. It was also when my Kickstarter came to its remarkable end. It was a fight to the bloody finish. On the day before the campaign ended, one of my biggest backers on Kickstarter significantly decreased their pledge. And on top of that, I was faced with the show where time was working against me. I was stressed. I was exhausted, but I wasn't ready to throw in the towel. I refused to accept defeat and contacted that backer while I was on the floor and convinced them to return to their original pledge and focused on selling out of SOON SHIN the rest of the time. I wanted to get the job done, and I managed to do so in the final 15 minutes of the show on Sunday. That was a close call. Whether you have a good year or a bad year, and believe me, I've had my share of both, you always learn something, and as long as you're willing to learn and grow, you'll always have staying power in any endeavor you pursue. But the key to my success is to be kind and helpful towards others. We're all brothers and sisters, and it's important that we don't forget that, because between all the political bickering on social media, it's very easy to lose sight of what good there still is in our beautiful world. As I bring this year to a close, I want all of you to know how grateful I am for my audience, and how grateful I am for my contemporaries in the industry I work in. I wish all of you success in 2019. Happy holidays, and as always, onward to victory.